For a bit more on the election today, let's bring in our international affairs editor, Armen Georgian. Armen, polls are predicting a hung parliament coming out of this vote today. What does that mean exactly?
It means that no party has more than 50% of seats in the House of Commons. And if the polls are right, then we're now heading for the second hung parliament in a row. The last one resulted from the general election of May 2010. Now, hung parliaments are not unheard of. They're rare, but they've happened before in 1974, in 1929, and in 1910. But the prospect of having two hung parliaments in a row, if that's confirmed, suggests that the two-party system is breaking down, that Labour and the Conservatives may have to get used to building coalitions as the norm and not as the exception, and that governing alone may perhaps become a thing of the past. But of course, we'll have to see what the results of today's voting is.
Indeed, but as we were saying before, it does seem like we're going toward a hung parliament. Talk us through potential scenarios of how that might turn out.
Well, if no party has a majority, then obviously they will have to look to kingmakers, and two kingmakers have been mentioned. One is the Scottish Nationalist Party, the SNP, or the Liberal Democrats. Now, neither of those two parties are really very palatable partners for the two big parties, Labour and the Conservatives. The Conservatives don't really want to continue in a coalition with the Liberal Democrats. And meanwhile, in the ranks of the Labour Party, there's a lot of hostility towards the Liberal Democrats because of their record in government on spending cuts, for example. So many members of the Labour Party would actually prefer a minority Labour government that is backed by the Scottish nationalists on key vote, for example, the budget. So that would be a better scenario for many members of Labour than a pact between Labour and the Liberal Democrats. But of course, the idea of a Labour government backed by the Scottish nationalists is a difficult thing for Ed Miliband, the Labour leader, to sell, because this is effectively the scenario that he ruled out in the TV debates. He said that he would not do either deals or coalitions with the SNP. So that would certainly involve an about face if he ended up actually doing that in the end.